Kumlan and Bava Kama. We are up to Daf Nun Ches Amud Aleph in the Gemara Bava Kama. We're talking about the payments. So we said that we learned from a pasuk that when it comes to an animal, wandering in and consuming and ruining the crop of somebody, if he ruins the crop, he's mazik the crop, then you pay. You pay for the damage, but how do you assess the damage? You don't assess it in isolation. We learned from Bia B'Zdei that you take it in contrast to the field all around it, and we worked out that Rashi, it's a multiple of 60 and two layers. So the last thing is we brought a brisa after Abaye was discussing with the Rabbi to say that it's always a multiple of 60, and just that the brises don't bother delineating that in detail. He brought a whole brisa here where we talked about a chazis, we talked about a smoda. Smoda are grapes that are in between. They're not just they're not just the little shoots. It's just beginning to bud. It's not fully ripe yet. It's sort of in between. So when the grapes are fully ripe, we already had an argument in the Mishnah, according to Shimon Bar Yochai, we then just look at the grapes that you ruined because they don't need the land anymore. It's only when it's smaller. Always, as long as it's attached to the land, we look at it a multiple of 60, and then we work our way back down to one saw, and then we take that one saw. What is it worth minus these grapes and with the grapes? But here in the thing we had a machlekes regarding smother. Rabbi Yeshua says by smother, which are half ripe grapes. He says by smother, Rabbi Yeshua says you look at it, you don't pay the price of now, you pay at what it would have been like when it matured, and that's the price you pay. You pay for its potential. The Chacham say you pay for it what it is right now. At this state, what is the value of it? And based on the 60. And then we had Shimon ben Yehuda, in the name of Shimon Chai, he said that no, that if it's smother is when it's just budding. He says, but when he makes a contrast between shoots and boisa. He says that shoots just starting right now, there you say it's part of the land. But if it's boisa, which is half ripe, we treat it as if it's separate, and we just look at the grapes of the valley, we don't compare it to the land. What he does not talk about is smother. Smother is the in-between stage, when it begins to bud. It's not just shoots, it's not already half ripe, it's just beginning to bud. He doesn't tell us what he holds there. Do we then do the whole formula of 60, we go to 60 saw, we go back to one saw, or do we look at it on its own? And that's what the Gemara is going to discuss right now. Says the Gemara, we'll discuss that in a minute. First, the Gemara says, Amar Abaye. Abaye said that Rabbi Yossi Haglili, that we learned yesterday, Rabbi Yossi Haglili says when it comes to chazes, when it comes to grains, he says that even though just starting, the shoots are just coming out, he says we don't charge you the way it is right now. We charge you according to its potential. He's using the word you assess min hamashuya. You look at the rest of that furrow. You look at the rest of that patch, and if whatever its value is when it's fully mature, you say that these grains also would have reached that same value, and that's how you calculate. So Rabbi Yisrael, who said you judge on the future, and Rabbi Shua would seem to be the same, but the Gemara doesn't mention it. Rabbi Shmuel, who is this Rabbi Shmuel? It's Rabbi Shmuel that we had before, and we had one interpretation. Now we're going to have another interpretation. The pasuk says that when your animal goes into somebody else's field, you should pay meitav sadeu or meitav karma yishalm, the best of your fields. So generally, before in the Gemara we had a whole discussion. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Shmuel says that you pay according to the nizik. And according to Kivi, pay according to the mazik. And the way we explained it before, first we started about Abba. We said what it means is that if we don't know, if you ate low premium fruits, you pay according to that. You pay high premium, you pay according to that. Whatever you don't know, meitav sadei, you pay the meitav. And the Gemara says it can't be, because if we don't know, then there's always a rule. You let the victim prove what it was. Was it premium or wasn't premium? So therefore, that in the previous Gemara we learned that if the nizik, you have to pay the best premium fields, but according to whose premium? Is it the nizik, for example, the nizik's premium field is equivalent of the worst field, is the burius of the mazik. What does the mazik pay? His burius, because it's equal to the premium of the nizik, or does he pay his idiot, which is, and that's the argument of Rabbi Shmuel. But here in the Gemara, we're going to learn a different explanation of their argument. It goes as follows. Rabbi Shmuel, the time we learned, Meitav Sadei, Meitav Kamishal, when you pay the best you feel. Meitav Sadei, Shal Nizik, Rabbi Shmuel says the best of the Nizik, or Meitav Kamish, is the best of the vineyards, and Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Kiva says, Loibar HaKosav, Alik Boys, and Zikim, and idiots. You got to go to the Mazik and take his premium fields, and Kavachem, like surely when you come to pay Hegdish, and we had this whole discussion of Bava Kama Daf of 9 Malal. Now says the Gemara, "V'loy tema." Don't learn the pshat is kirav idi baravin. Don't learn pshat like Rav Idi baravin. The Amar Rav Idi baravin. He going to ochla aruga ben arugas. He wanted to learn that they're arguing a case where the animal ate, let's say, a patch over there amongst all the other rows. But we don't know what he ate. Was it lean or shmeinu, or was it like premium? The Amar, so Rabbi says, Rabbi Shmuel says, "Kum shalim shmeinu b'meitav." You pay as if it was the most premium. The Ika whatever available right now, you look at the field, whatever's the premium, that's what we say, that's what you have to pay. Probably that's what it was. No way that's shot. The in my time, why not? Why in the world should you pay the premium if you don't know what damage you made? It doesn't make sense. Ella, you know what it means? The mate of the lekameh. Rabbi Shmuel says that you pay the damage that he did today, but not according to the value of today, but according to the potential value in the future. How do you assess that? At the time of harvesting, if it would have been fully ripe, what would it cost? What's the value? That's what you pay today, which is exactly what every single said before. By chazes, you look at the rest of the row when the season is over, and you say, okay, this is probably what these grains that this animal ate would have turned into the same as all around it, and that's the value you pay. So right now it's worth $5, but then when it's full grown, $25.
Part of my focus seems to be about, do you pay according to the loss of the music or according to what's the action of the music? Because
exactly,
the loss of the music means I would have sold that. This one kept growing.
So we had two opinions, if you remember yesterday. One opinion is Rabbi Yossi Aglula says you look at what's around it, which means what happens if there was a hurricane and all around it died. So exactly. No, so what's he really saying? Exactly what Jimmy just said. That he basically said you pay according to the loss to the nizik. How do you determine what the loss to the nizik is? You'll only know when the season is over. Could be there was no loss at all to the nizik, because could be if the animal wouldn't have eaten it, it would also have been destroyed by the hurricane, or the cyclone. So therefore, there's no loss. So according to Rabbi Yossi, you look at the loss to the nizik. But according to Rabbi Yeshua, who said that we don't look at what's neighboring, we just say the potential of this could have been. So it's not so much a loss to the nizik, because maybe there's no loss to the nizik. Maybe there's a hurricane coming up. It's just you look at the koyach or the poil of this thing here, inherent potential. Interesting. Anyhow, let's analyze the Bryce. Rabbi Shimon says, I don't agree with that Mishnah in the understanding of Shimon Choy. Shimon Choy is saying it like this. When do you say that you value according to the land, your multiple of 16, so on, when it was just in the state of shoots, so it's literally part of the ground. So that's how you value. You look at the land area and so on and so forth. But so then you would infer, but what about, let's say, some other we're starting to bud? I mean, you can already see the grapes, even though it's not really grapes yet. Then we treat it as if it's already separated from the ground, because it already has independent nature. It's already a grape, and therefore you just look in the grapes in isolation. That's what it would seem. But aim was safer. Then read the end of the brayse. Ochla pagi, but if we ate it when it was half when the figs were half ripe, or the grapes were half ripe, only then we treat it as if it's a grape, separate from the ground. So we infer, but what about if the stage before that, when it was only just budding? It's like part of the gland, and you look at the land. What's with it, without it? So which one is it? Ravina says, bundle them together, and this is how you should learn. Only when it shoots, that's when we say it's part of the land. Add the word smother. But if you ate smother, which is already budding, is just like pagin abaysa. You throw it in there as well. The word smother, throw into the pagis. So let's say you're right. So Rav Shimon ben Yehuda, hein Rabbi Yeshua. So what's the difference of Shimon Yehuda Rabbi Yeshua? Rabbi Yeshua said when you ate smother, when you ate the budding grapes, you don't pay according to the price of now. You pay according to the price of the future. And Rabbi Shimon said the same thing. So the Gemara, Ika Benayo, there's a big difference. You know what the difference is? Kachash gufna. Very interesting. You know that while the grapes are growing, if you look at the grapes in isolation, well, the grapes are going to be worth $5, whatever, a bunch. But if you look at the vines, as the grapes grow, they suck out more and more of the moisture of the vines, and it prevents the vines from growing extra grapes because it doesn't have enough moisture to do that. So these vines come at a cost. Let's say they're $5, but it comes at a cost $1 of the vine, because you could have grown more grapes. Now, because of this particular cluster, you can't. So the question is, do you entertain the chash gufla? Do you entertain And it's a fascinating machlekes here. When we pay for damage, do you entertain that that damage would have cost later the balabas something? Do we deduct that? But lay Messiah, we don't know who says what. Abai said, "What do you mean you don't know who says what? Messiah. Of course you know who says what." Abai is he's the most prolific, but he's the most prolific Amira. Rav is second, close, very very close second, but Abai by far the most prolific Amira. Man Tana the Chai the Chazufin is very clear. Rab Shimon Yehudi. What's the story? The Tanya we learned. Rab Shimon Yehudi, Rab Shimon Nasya. Oinus. A man rapes a girl, right? He has to pay. He has to pay whatever it is. He's it's for this. Aina Mishal Mesatzar. When he rapes a girl, so besides with the knas of the Torah, you cause all this damage. You don't have to pay for the pain. It's the first time she's a virgin. Now usually there's pain. Ripping the hymen. He doesn't have to pay for it. You know why? Because if she would have got married, it would have happened anyway. So you deduct that. No, but you don't say, okay, well, you just caused the pain amongst everything else and maybe other damage. You have to pay for the tzar. We deduct what it would if it would have happened anyway. Just because he did it doesn't mean anything. Makes a cheshbon. Because ultimately it will suffer. So we see clearly from here, we take into account the naked, what it would have cost the other person, and we deduct that. And the Chacham Mu'adi don't disagree with this principle. They only say, how can you compare a woman with her husband when she's a willing participant, even though there's pain, she's willing to bear it, but if a person rapes her, she's not willing to bear it also, the pain is far worse. So they argue not on the principle that we deduct. In this case, they say we don't deduct because it's a different tzar. Omar Abai now Abai says, let's go further. Hani Tanoi. These Tanoim who believe that you deduct future, costs from the hezek is and Rav Shimon Yehuda. Who is the Tanoim? Rav Shimon Yehuda. We just said, right? You deduct to the tzar. Hani Tanoim. A woman that you cause her to miscarry. Yeah, you have to pay for the mabel others for the young babies that could have survived. Do we deduct anything from that? Fascinating machlekes. Benazai says nechim muzainis. Benazai says machlekes Hashem halal pshat. According to Rashi, this woman, when she's heavily pregnant, has a much bigger appetite. So if she was continuing pregnant, it would have cost the husband another $10 a week to feed her for another month, let's say $40. But now that she miscarried, he no longer has to eat the extra. The husband just saved $40. The Velad is worth 100. We're going to deduct the 40 from the 100. I only caused you damage of $60. Others say, and this is even harder to calculate, and it comes out. So, if these children had been born, you would have to raise them. You know what it costs to raise a child? You'll get Time magazine. It's $1 million to raise a child from 0 to 18. Machlekes is showing in that opinion whether it's till the age of 6 years old. You calculate the age of 3 or 2. You do. According to these people, right? You know what it costs exactly. You know what it costs you to feed your animal, and if your animal doesn't milk, and so on, so it doesn't produce. It's not a what do you call economically valuable. You owe me money. I saved you, in fact. So some of the Shem have a lesson that, according to this interpretation, that it's not the money that she eats the extra 4 weeks when she's heavily pregnant, but rather raising the child. It comes out sometimes that the woman owes that money because if you go to that child at 6, we go to Mark Subas, you have to feed your child to 6 years old. It can cost you thousands of dollars. And so on and so forth. Anyway, so they allow us like Rashi's try better. But the bottom line is we deduct future expenses. And so the one Menada says Nechima is the food, and I skipped the one. Rabbi says Nechishaya, we deduct. You have to hire a midwife. That costs money. Now that you miscarry, you don't have to hire a midwife. It would have cost you $50 to hire a midwife for the event. Deduct that from the total let's say the value of 100. You deduct $50. Menada says Nechima Zainis. The one that says Nechishaya, which is extraneous to her, you can have to without a midwife. Surely he would agree. You have to deduct. So you deduct two things. You deduct the midwife, you deduct the food, probably nothing left. The husband say, she's an intelligent woman, doesn't need a midwife. And even though Taisa quotes another Gemara, you do need a midwife, but who said you have to pay? Maybe she has a friend who's a midwife. She can get something free. Tell the Gemara.
Struggle with the whole
idea
The
of
whole process of logic involved. It's almost like a mystery, the muzzing is charging the.
That's what some of the shayim will learn like Rashi. You have to limit when we say deductions. You have to limit deductions because if it's open ended, it could be you pay nothing.
Safe, you get away with murder.
And goes worse. Of course, one of the shayim saying so the nizik owes money to the mazik. I just saved you $10,000. I don't need the damage of 1,000. Give me my $9,000. Well, let's divide it. Says the Gemara. Let's conclude. They followed Nachman. We said yesterday by the palm tree that you go a multiple of 60. Beshishim. Is another version. That they what? That they valued the palm tree according to the piece of land that was on it. So we say as follows. We follow if it's an ordinary palm tree, then it doesn't matter how many palm trees you have. We go the multiple 60, we do the whole cheshbon, and we work our way back, and that's the loss. But interesting, it wasn't a rub or anything else. But we passed the Lusa, the Dikla Parsa, when it's a very hush of a palm tree, which is something that Rashi says is very, very just very hush, very rare, or whatever it is, then you don't just discount it back, multiple, 60 the land. You look at it in isolation. Eliezer, a very interesting matter. Eliezer Zeira, Eliezer, the humble one, we call him Zira, the small one, means the humble one. He decided to wear black shoes. Now, it was not a Jewish thing to wear black shoes, so different opinions there. According to some of the Shainim, Yidden used to wear, I'm trying to imagine, this is like the jazz players in America. Yidden used to wear white shoes, and Goyim used to wear black. Now, you would think that white shoes attract more attention. Yidden like to be low, low key. But so Taisha says everyone wore black shoes, but Yidden used to wear white shoelaces, and Goyim used to wear black shoelaces. And for Avelis, they used to wear totally black. So he started to wear black shoes. The Koibush shook in the doy, and he was standing in the market in the doy. Talking about the Reish Glusa, he found him in the street. What are you wearing, black shoes or black shoelaces? I'm going to stay the morning for Yerushalayim. They said to him, Ad Chashiva de Sabuli Yerushalayim, you that Chashiva to be Yerushalayim? Savar Yoyda have it. They put him in prison. Look at the powers of the Reish Galusa. They intervene, not if you did something wrong. You decided to be a big shot, to be arrogant, filled with hubris, that you're going to stand there in Avelis, Yerushalayim. They're going to prison you for that. And first of all, what charge is there? So the guy's Mechiki, therefore what? You put him in jail for that? And you see the power of the Reish Galusa. We'll have in Sanhedrin that the power was much more in the authority, vested in the authority in Bubble than in Israel. You can see now how. And also you can see that you're not allowed to have Avelis. You're not allowed to have Avelis. There's a big argument whether is it better to have more Avelis during the Avelis, or better to have less and less Avelis. What's better for the neshama of the departed? And anyway, you see the Gemara here that generally, we don't want people to be Avelim unless you have a very valid reason. Anyway, they put him in jail. He said to them, even though Rav Tafel was punished, we had him murdered because he said he could have used his money to save himself rather than being about Torah. But here he was saying to them, I'm a learned man, so I'm not a Mexican. He's not trying to save himself. He's saying, you're accusing me of being a frumak. I want you to know that I am in that situation. How do you know you're about Torah? You can ask me any question you want, I'll answer you. Or I know you're by Menachem, or I'll ask you any questions, see if you guys know. And I'll prove to you that I know how to learn. I'm a scholar. We don't have to ask you. But yeah, you ask a question. Now they weren't learned people. He said to them, Hi man the cuts kufr. What do you do if somebody cuts down dates that are not fully ripe? They're like equal to boisa by grapes, halfway. What do you do there? What do you pay? You value according to the 60, multiple 60. What do you do? Buy Mishal, what do you pay? They said, Mishal may cover you. Well, you pay what you did, the damage you did. So he said, but he said that they have potential to turn the dates, so maybe you should pay according to the full thing, and you should be only focusing on the dates. They said, you're right. Okay, good point. Mishal may tamrei. Maybe he didn't take tamrei. Maybe you should go today. So he's playing with them. He realized they didn't know how to learn. You tell us. We do multiple shishim regardless. Who rules like you? Shmuel's alive. Shmuel's alive. Ubeis Dina Kaim, he has a bezin there that are existing. Shadr Kamedu sent him Amalu Shapik Kamluchu Beshishim Vishavku. Like a puppet of Meshur, the halacha is 60, multiple 60, and they let him go. It's an amazing story how intrusive this Reish Galusa was. Oh, what a chutzpah. So you couldn't be fry in those. If the Reish Galusa was from, you couldn't be fry. Forget about fry because they'll put you in jail. Yeah, exactly. So they couldn't be a kanoi, couldn't be a chanyok. Yeah, no, unless you have a right to. Amazing. Anyway, for the Gemara, Rav Shimon says, "Ochla paid." Rav Shimon says, "Now Mishnah, the way our Mishnah is Rav Shimon. Only if he ate fully ripe grapes do we say that we don't treat it as part of the land. We see it separately. And we pay accordingly. Second one of my time, but why? The title we just learned before that we value 60 times according to the land, what's with it without it. Right? We said based on the entire plot of land. Hani immediately the tzaddik only if it's still growing and it needs the land. Hani kiven the inayu bayishlume because these grapes are fully ripe and they're ready to be harvested, so they don't need the field anymore to continue growing. So then you have to pay according to what it is. Assessment of the field goes. We're talking about damaging field. We're talking about eating. We're talking about damaging field.
This exactly. Where's the shishim come from?
It looks like the Chachamim made that judgment to get the right amount. As Rashi explained yesterday, it looks like it. Rashi yesterday, if you only focus on one, so you'll be paying a premium. If you focus on 120, so beyond 180, then you'll pay very little. So therefore, we worked at a number that you'll get a more realistic. Fair to both sides. Rav Kirameir. Rav the Maisa was like Rameir Upasa Kilchsa Rav Shimon. And he passed it elsewhere according to Rav Shimon. What's going on? Don Dani Rav Meir. Which Rav Meir is Rav passing like? The Tanya will learn a very interesting thing. We know that if a wife has properties that there's a lien on the property for a ksuva, and then she accepts her husband wants to sell the property to somebody. If she said, I agree, she has a right to undo that. And she said, I only did it because to find favor in my husband's eye, to go along with it. But how many bank stories we have here in Australia where the wives, signed the house away for loans. And then she said, I didn't know what I was signing. He told me whatever the story is. And there's big, question marks. What happens? Is it a genuine, or not? So the same thing here. If she signed something, she said, I just did it to find favor for shalom bayis, then it's not like she's signing off or signing away her rights. So what happens? Because of litigation, the husband wanted to give it to one person and she did not sign, but the sheni then he took and he sold it to the second property he sold to somebody else. The chasman she signed the second one. So the mayor says that proves to us that if shalom bayis, then why didn't you sign the first one? Yes, that means that you decided the second one you're happy with. You like this guy in your mind. Of the ksuvas, it holds 4/5 ksuvim. Rabbi Yehuda says, everyone is independent of the next one. This one I did, for whatever reason, our Maimon and Masao situation, the marriage at that time, it was a bit more fragile, and I decided to please my husband. What do you want from me? I had no brega. So he paskins like Rameir. Taisha how it makes a distinction. If she herself wrote the ksuva, she can no longer. If she wrote the star mechira to this person, then or even if the husband wrote it, but it says there that as if she's the one who's selling it, and then she said, "I did for my husband." That's a very weak argument. So one thing here, the husband said, "I'm selling it to this person," and she said, "I need your signature because there are two owners here in the property. I need your signature." Then she said, "Look, I only decided my husband asked me, begged me." Then she has a taina. I did it to please my husband. And then the argument made is what happened. Sometimes she did sign, sometimes she didn't sign. How do we interpret that? But do we look at each situation separately, or do we say prove that she's giving that she's happy? But in the case where she's writing it, or even she didn't write the husband, but she's the one selling it, she can no longer say I'm doing to please my husband because it looks like she's happily involved. What's the halakha of Shimon in our Mishnah? That Rab Shimon, it says if it's complete Paris, we look at exactly what the damage was done, and that's it. We don't look at the rest of the property. We don't do multiple 60, nothing else. But it's separated from the property. Next Mishnah. I brought all my fruits and vegetables into your. I trespassed. I brought it into your property. You should mission. And the owner of the field animal walked around and ate it. We're not talking about when the animal got damaged from eating it, because that we already had Rab before said who said the animal should eat it. But we're talking about ate it. Potter, the owner of the field was Potter, because what right do you have to bring it payers in my property? Too bad. And if the animal got damaged, by slipping or something, in the Balagot is chayiv. You brought it, you trespassed, you had no right to put it there. But if it's done with permission, the owner of the field is chayiv. Remember, you had is Rebbe Nachamim. Did you have to spell out that I'm taking responsibility? No, it's according to because sometimes according to Chamim, when I gave you permission, what I'm really saying is I'll make sure that my animal is not. No, the other way around. I'm going to make sure that my animal is not going to damage. If I'm giving you permission, the balasada. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I'm not especially for my animal. My animal is not going to damage your fruits. So then the story is different. So we have a stam mishnah. It'll be a question according to the opinion. It seems like not like Rebbe. Rebbe, it says in the mishnah here, but if he gave permission, then the owner of the field is chayiv if his animal eats it. But according to Rebbe, he has to being quiet is not a tacit agreement. He has to spell it out. But a papa here's a different case. We're talking about here. We're talking about that there's a big field here and he's watching for other people. He was a watchman. He's more than just a stam of fields that a guy's trespassing. I watching for a number of people, silos or whatever it is. Oh, I get it. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So I'm a watchman watching all the different people's things. And if I tell you they keep it on my aisle, if I tell you, okay, no problem, bring it in. What am I really in this case? Even Rebbe is I'm saying I'm going to watch it for you. Next mission which we already had a while ago as well, and that is Hashaleach is Havodah b'yad chesed rakot. We sent a fire, a torch or something in the hands of someone who's irresponsible. It's quite reckless for you to give it to him, and we said before you chai b'din shemaim, but it's quite irresponsible to give it to them. He gave them a torch, and then they went ahead and they burned somebody's house down. Is the person who gave them the torch responsible or not? Potter b'dini adam b'chai din shemaim. In a court of law, you're potter. And we'll see an argument about what exactly happened. But shilach b'yad pekech, if you put it in the hand of an intelligent person, and the pekech goes ahead and lights and burns somebody's house down, of course the pekech is chayiv. Is chayiv because he's a responsible person. Even if I told him to do it, ain't shlichut dvar aveh. What happened? Echad Avis, one guy brought a fire to a place. The next guy brought the wood, and as a result of the wood, the fire spread and burned somebody's house down. Who's responsible? The latter. And maybe it's Chayiv. Obviously, the guy put the wood. Who's the second? The other way around. Echad, guy brought wood there, and then another guy came and lit it. Then maybe it's Chayiv. The one who brought the fire is Chayiv. Again, whoever's the last person that caused the thing to happen is Chayiv. What happens if Achad Beliba? Say someone came along and blew it and fanned the flame. Hamalaba Chayiv. The one who fanned is Chayiv. What about lipso ruach? Nobody came to flame it. The flame was there, and suddenly a wind came and blew it up. Then kulam peturin. We're talking about in a case, as Mero explained, under normal circumstances, the fire shouldn't have gone any further. It's a normal bonfire you did in the back of your property, but then suddenly a gust of wind came out of nowhere. A very strong wind, and that caused the fire to jump the fence and burn the rails down. Then you are part. So first we had the argument. Shlaki said, "Much made the Chizkiya. We're not talking about only in a case. When do we say that you're a potter? You gave a coal, which the fire is not really exposed, and Veliba, this Chazar decided to go fan the flame and blow it up. So that's why you're potter. I have a muscle. You gave an open flame to a miner, and then the miner that's so reckless, so responsible, it's as if you actively set the house on fire. And my time, you caused the whole thing to happen because you gave an exposed flame. However, Rabbi Yechon says no. I feel most shall have us. Even if you gave him an open flame, you potter. I gave him an open flame because remember, because my time at Tzafsa the Chedesh had to take the fire and walk. He's holding on to it. He had to take the fire and move it to the next door's property. So I was a cause, a very strong cause for the whole thing to happen. I gave him an exposed flame. It's irresponsible. But in the court of law, at the end of the day, I did not set that house on fire. This Chedesh had to take the fire. The Chedesh had to take the fire and walk across the street and burn that house down. So I'm not part. I'm part. That's a kol abiyachet. When your mamish gave it to him everything. For example, you gave him a dry piece of wood, silsa, little tiny twigs, and shiraga and a burning candle. And therefore it's all burning right here. It's much more, and you didn't just give him the fire, you also gave him the fuel and everything else. To have a vade ma'aseh they go. This is much more than just grub. It's like mamish, you did it. Okay, we'll stop over here. And we'll continue tomorrow. Mitzvah 8 o'clock. It's a holiday tomorrow, so Mitzvah we're still in tomorrow 8 o'clock. Have a good day.